What's going on, YouTube? Today we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the Broncos heading into next season. I don't know if I'm going to do this for for all teams. Definitely not for all teams, or I don't know if I'm going to do it for any other teams. But yeah, we're just going to be doing the Broncos today. So taking a look, starting off with the quarterback room. It's easily the worst part of this team. You know, you got Drew Lock starting right now, who's probably the worst quarterback in the NFL. Still has upside. He can still turn it around. You know, if the Bills would have given up on Josh Allen after one full season, they wouldn't have him right now in his form. And that's the case with a lot of quarterbacks. What if the Colts just, gave up on Peyton Manning after he made the rookie interception record? That still stands today. And look where he is now. I think people are hating on him really quickly and way too much. I get why. The Broncos are a very young team ready to make multiple Super Bowl runs right now. If they can just get a quarterback, then great. I would love for them to trade Deshaun Watson. I fully believe they could very easily win a Super Bowl if they had Watson. And beyond Drew Lock, Jeff Driskel is maybe the worst backup quarterback in the NFL. Brett Rypien, we've not really seen much of. He's just a smaller guy, nephew of Mark Rypien. But, if you look at some of your draft options, there's a chance Justin Fields maybe falls to you. I don't see it happening, but if they really want to, maybe Peyton trades up. Mack Jones is a viable option. Probably a guy you want to take more in the second round right now after a horrible pro day. And Kyle Trask, kind of just more of a late round option that holds some potential. He was definitely bailed out by the talent around him in Florida, being that Tony is maybe the best player in football at making you miss, and Kyle Pitts is just such a freak. Quarterback room, not the best here for Denver. Definitely need to upgrade it in some way. Running back room, much better than the quarterback room. Melvin Gordon struggled at times to stay healthy, has had a few off the field issues actually, although his DUI, I don't know if it got revoked or whatever, but I don't think he'll be facing punishment for it. Royce is a great backup option. He's definitely shown off. Mike Boone is an interesting signing because he's a guy coming over from the Vikings that George Payton really liked. Great special teams player, so that makes our special teams unit better as a whole, which is something the Broncos really needed. But also, Mike Boone's kind of one of those breakout candidates this year where he could be our number one by the end of the year, and who knows, maybe even our number one moving forward. But if the Broncos do want to upgrade in the draft, if they can get their hands on Najee Harris in the second round and nobody else is really there to take, I would definitely do that. I think he's the number one coming in. And then you have a great number two in Melvin Gordon. Michael Carter would be the replacement for Phillip Lindsay. Very, very, very similar to Phillip Lindsay, but maybe even better. And then Trey Sermon's a guy that I've been in love with for a while. Honestly, Melvin Gordon 2.0 really is my comp for him. I get it. At the same time, you already have Melvin Gordon. Why do you need him again? Well, because this guy can actually stay healthy for the most part. For right now, anyways. Running backs don't last that long anymore. But I mean, it's overall still a pretty solid position here for the Broncos. Moving on to a really strong piece to the Broncos offense, probably the strongest piece is their receiving room is really good. They're getting Courtland Sutton back for their number one. Then they got their number two, Jerry Jeudy, who I'm expecting a breakout year for him this year, especially if Drew Lock even plays somewhat decent. Drops were a bit of an issue last year, but I think that's something he can overcome pretty easily. He's still one of the best route runners in the NFL. He can very easily be the number one receiver for the Broncos going forward. Tim Patrick, they retain him for at least one more year. Yeah, really underrated receiver. This guy probably would have gotten a decent to good payday if he would have became a free agent. He'll probably stick around for one more year. I mean, he might even have a better year than last year and earn himself like a good-sized contract. Easily the best number 3 receiver in the league and one of the more underrated guys. KJ Hamler as a number 4 receiver is really freaking good. This guy's a great slot option, very fast as well, obviously. Great speed threat there for the Broncos. Deshaun Hamilton, the guy's kind of losing his role. He's really just not shown enough to be worth that third pick from a few years ago, third round pick. He can still play fine in the slot, but now you have KJ Hamler and Patrick to do that. Plus Jeudy and Sutton can already be great slot players. He'll still be the number 5 on the team, but he's probably not sticking around for much longer. And then there was a few guys I could go with, but I went with Deontay Spencer. He's been serviceable enough. If KJ Hamler gets hurt, he's a great replacement for that role that Hamler plays. If they want to take a guy late in the draft, some guys that could possibly fall to them maybe 5th, 6th, 7th round, and they want to take them. Jalen Darden is one of the more underrated receivers in this class. People are starting to finally recognize his talent. Super speedy dude. Great route runner as well. He'd be a fantastic option if he falls in the draft. Cornell Powell, pretty underrated receiver out of Clemson. Maybe his play got, overdone because he did have Trevor Lawrence throwing to him. Still a pretty solid receiver if you want to take a bet on him, 6th or 7th round. And then a guy that I kind of started to pick up on lately, Josh Amader-Bahibi, as I believe is how you say it, had a really, really good pro day. His measurables and his numbers at the pro day were really, really good. Definitely bumped him off my draft stock. So yeah, it's a guy that, again, if you can get late 6th, maybe even 7th round, I would definitely take a shot at that. But overall, this wide receiver room is very good. Moving on to the tight end room, this is kind of interesting for me because you have Noah Fant, who's definitely one of the up-and-coming tight ends in the NFL. Probably already top 10, could be top 5 by the end of the year. Could have a breakout year as well because he really hasn't had that year yet. Number 2, you have one of the more underrated tight ends in the NFL, even just in his second year, and Albert O. Yeah, this guy is honestly secretly one of the better tight ends, number 2 tight ends in the NFL already. Very, very fast. Him and Noah Fant make up the fastest tight end duo, and it's not even close. He had that good chemistry with Drew Lock, so he was actually playing pretty well before he got hurt for the season. I expect him to come back and be, playing at full ability. I really like him. And then tight end 3 is where it kind of dips off. They had some great guys last year, like Jake Butt and at one point Jeff Hireman, and last year it was Nick Vannett, but they didn't really do much. So right now it's Austin Fort. If they do want to upgrade that number 3 position, there are some interesting prospects in the draft to, again, take later on. Trey McKitty is a great guy that if he falls to you, definitely pull the trigger on that. Kenny Yeboah is pretty solid as well. And Nick Eubanks, I think, would fit the Broncos offense really well if they could take him. Then looking at our tackles, Garrett Bowles enjoyed a really nice breakout year last year. Was actually one of the best tackles, not only tackles, one of the best players in football last year. I don't believe he let up a single sack. I think he had 1 pressure allowed the entire season and 1 penalty that was kind of a dumb penalty. So yeah, Garrett Bowles really enjoyed a breakout year. He looks to be a solid tackle for years to come. Calvin Anderson is a meh backup. He didn't even make the roster last year. You have Juwan James, who looks to finally be playing for us. Was completely unhealthy his first year and then opted out last year. So hopefully he actually plays this year and jumps back up to the tackle that he was in Miami. Right now the backup at right tackle is Darren Paulo, a guy they signed on a future contract. Yeah, Elijah Wilkinson went and signed with the Bears, and DeMar Dotson's just a free agent. I don't know if he retired yet, but yeah, 2 starting tackles. Garrett Bowles is going to be great. Who knows with Juwan James, but they could definitely use some depth. And if they can get their hands on one of these guys, Liam Eichenberg wouldn't only be great depth, but could very easily be the tackle of the future at that right position. And if they want to get a guy maybe 3rd, 4th round that falls to him, Jackson Carman and Walker Little are very underrated players that, again, can either be great depth or maybe even the tackle of the future here for the Broncos. So while they have a great player in Bowles, who knows what James is going to give us, and the depth is pretty poor, so see. Then we have our guards, and Dalton Reisner had a really, really good rookie year. Sadly, declined a bit in play in his second year. However, hopefully he jumps back up from that. Right now, the backup to him would be John Halapio, I believe is how you say it. Another guy on a future contract. Graham Glasgow was one of the best guards in football, and nobody really realized it last year. Then you have Matane Moody, who is a very, very serviceable backup. One of the better backup linemen in the NFL. And honestly, if Glasgow's contract goes up, this guy can very easily start for us. This guy probably would have been a 1st rounder last year, if not for his serious injury concerns. And that's literally all that's holding him back. Kind of like with Jalen Phillips this year. As long as he stays healthy, he will be a decent to good guard. And so, yeah, I really like the upside with Matane Moody. If they really want to upgrade the position, maybe get someone behind Reisner, or just in case they want to take someone. Alex Leatherwood is a guy that could fall and would definitely transition to guard, as this guy's just not going to last as a tackle in the NFL. And then 2 interesting options in David Moore, Drake Jackson. Two guys that might fall a good amount just because they did not put up the best pro days. Their measurables are not very favorable, but could, slot in pretty easily right there behind Reisner. So it's a overall pretty solid guard room for the Broncos. Center, so they got Lloyd Cushenberry, who had a really poor rookie year, actually. He let up a good amount of pressures and just was not the best center. They have a very good backup behind him, actually, in Austin Schlotmann, who is not just a center. He can definitely play backup left or right guard if they really need him to be. He's a pretty serviceable guy. And then Patrick Morris, also a pretty serviceable backup. He's played really, really good at times, but he wasn't even on the roster last year. This is a position that if they have the opportunity to, I would definitely hop on to upgrade, as I do think any of the draft options I listed below would be an upgrade over Cushenberry based on how he played last year. But these are guys that definitely would want them to take if they fell rather than out of need or before anyone else. Creed Humphrey, this guy is probably going to go somewhere first, second round, and he really shouldn't. So he's not going to fall. But if he were to somehow fall, I would jump on it. Landon Dickerson can play center or guard, so he fills kind of both of those needs if they want him to be. Another guy that if he was healthy, he'd be a first rounder. So if he fell, say maybe third, fourth round, I don't imagine he would, but if he did, I would definitely hop on that. And Josh Myers is a pretty okay center. Might be an upgrade over Cushenberry. I don't know if I'd take him, but it would depend. Then moving on to the defense. This is where it really starts to get good for the Broncos. So starting off with their defensive ends, Dre'Mont Jones. I really love Dre'Mont Jones. I think he's been very underrated so far. He's been a backup, obviously, so far, but this dude has a ton of potential. He can easily be better than he was last year or the year before that. I think this guy can be pretty good. McTelvin Agim, rookie from last year, we haven't really seen anything from him, but he's just kind of the backup right now. They retained Shelby Harris, which was a great move by George Payton. He'll be I don't see any reason he'd decline in play after this. He'll be a great guy across from Dre'Mont Jones. And then DeMarcus Walker, who actually I think may be a free agent, but they don't even have any depth beyond him. They have guys that can switch over there, obviously, but just with Walker being a free agent, but overall, the room is still very good. It's still very deep with other guys they can put in as rotational pieces. If they really want to upgrade it, there are some solid options. Joseph Asai can play basically anywhere along defensive end or outside linebacker in the NFL. So if they can get their hands on him, definitely. Carlos Basham Jr. probably transitions better as a outside linebacker. However, could still easily play defensive end if they want some really nice depth and maybe a guy of the future. And then Chris Rumpf, one of those late round options where if they can get him 6th or 7th, it's such tremendous value that it would be a great pick. Overall, this room is still very good. Then on to the defensive tackle room, a little underwhelming. Mike Purcell has shown some stuff, but he's definitely not your typical tackle. You'd want a much bigger bodied guy than him. He still has some potential, but he's starting to get up there in age. Sylvester Williams, wasted draft pick, went over to the Jaguars, and then now is back over here. He's fine. He probably, is a better backup. And then Isaiah Mack, a guy on a future contract, not the best. So this is definitely not the best tackle room. If they can get their hands on a guy like Christian Barmore in the second round, definitely. That guy would be a game changer for that defense and would fill out a big hole and make it super, super good. A guy I think would fit on the Broncos really nicely is Tyler Shelvin. Get him in the 3rd, 4th round. Heck of a steal, and he'd be really good. And then a late round option, Mustafa Johnson, Colorado native. I really like his play. He's shown some nice things at times. And then also just the Colorado connection, obviously. I like that there. I think any of these guys would be upgrades over Purcell, honestly. So I do see them taking a tackle some point early in the draft. If not, then they'll get a guy later on with some big upside like Johnson. But not the best room as of right now. Outside linebacker, on the other hand, you've got Von Miller coming back for at least one more year. So obviously that's a huge upgrade over Malik Reed, who is not the worst guy in the world. He's played very well at times. And people don't really see that. So he is one of the better backups in the NFL. Bradley Chubb had his first Pro Bowl season last year. This guy does look to be a game wrecker for seasons to come. And then I think Derek Tuska is probably going to be the number 2, especially with the Tashu going to the Bears. I really liked him out of, I believe it was Wake Forest. Maybe it wasn't Wake Forest, but he was a really good value pick for when the Broncos got him last year. And I'd really like to see what he does. So. And then if we're looking at the draft, The guy that I personally think the Broncos should take first round if a quarterback isn't available is Micah Parsons. People might say, oh, he's a linebacker. He'll probably play linebacker for a year, which he can still be pretty good at, but it really seems like he wants to transition to edge. I just think like getting Von Miller in there, having Micah Parsons there for a year, and then once Miller leaves, get Parsons there at the outside linebacker. He's arguably the best edge player in the entire class, so I would really like that for the Broncos, as well as the fact that he's just also a pretty versatile player. Azeez Ojulari, a guy that if they can get in the second round, they better take before anyone else, because this dude is such an incredible talent, and I don't know why other people don't see it. I don't expect him to last in the second round. Some team is going to love him and hop on him. This guy, he's Von Miller 2.0. Like, he's that good. And then a guy that I already talked about before, but, can still fit here is Carlos Basham Jr. Moving on to our inside linebacker room, another kind of piece of the defense that's pretty underwhelming. If they can upgrade it, that'd be great. A.J. Johnson, they're going to keep around for at least one more year, but he's definitely starting to get up there in age. He's pretty much hit his ceiling as to where he's going to get. Josey Jewell still has some potential. He's been solid enough. He's actually been a pretty good linebacker. And then Justin Strnad, a guy that was hurt last year, but I really, really love the upside in Strnad. I think he could be potentially the number one moving forward because he does show that kind of potential. Again, Micah Parsons, I already explained. JOK, I think, would fit great on this defense, especially since Kareem Jackson's probably only there for one more year. He can take over that role as strong safety, honestly, and play up in the box just as well as Kareem Jackson does, and if not better than Kareem Jackson. And then Nick Bolton would fill up a huge gap because these Broncos linebackers, they're good linebackers, but when it comes to tackling, run game, defense, they're not good pass protectors. Nick Bolton, on the other hand, is not only just a good pass protector, but as well can do just the same stuff these guys can do, if not better. Any of these players would be great for the Broncos, especially if they can get, like, say, Nick Bolton in the second round. Cornerback room. Yeah, this is great. Kyle Fuller, who is probably going to have his best season since 2018 under Fangio again. Ronald Darby, I really didn't like the signing at first until they took Fuller. It made me like Ronald Darby a lot more as a number 2, so that's great. Bryce Callahan was already a really good corner if he stays healthy, but is, in my opinion, the best slot corner in football. Then you have a super good, big upside young player in Michael Ojemudia, who showed some good things last year. Saying Bassey out of Wake Forest, I really like. And then Duke Dawson, who's been pretty serviceable at times. If they really want to take, maybe a depth piece or piece of the future, late round, Kerry Vincent makes sense. I think he'd fit Broncos scheme pretty well. Tay Gowan, I really love the almost the cockiness on this guy. He's pretty not full of himself, but he really does show his numbers. He's proud of them. So I really like the attitude on that guy, and I think he'd be a pretty nice piece on the defense. And then a guy that the Broncos corner room really just doesn't have is Israel Mukamu. That's how I think you say it. A much bigger, lengthier guy. He's definitely not going to be a number 1 or 2 in the NFL. But if they want, one of those big, lengthy guys just on the roster, that'd be a great pick for them. But this is a very solid corner room for the Broncos. Much, much improved. Then in our safety room, we got Justin Simmons, obviously. Finally, a Bronco long-term. Great move by George Payton. PJ Locke, a second-year player that shows some upside. Kareem Jackson back on a 1-year deal was yet another great move by Payton. He'll probably be gone after next year. Might even retire. But him here for 1 more year. Great. And then Will Parks is one of the better backup safeties in the NFL, and can even be starter if need be. If they want to take someone in the draft, someone to replace Kareem Jackson, or even just some depth, Javon Holland would be great to replace Kareem Jackson or back up Will Parks. He'd be great. He has a ton of potential. He'd be a first rounder if not for not playing this year. Jamar Johnson, the guy that people are really starting to get high on now at the end of the year. Yeah, he'd basically be Kareem Jackson 2.0. He'd take over exactly where Jackson left off, playing in the box and the way he does. That'd be a really good pick for the Broncos, especially if they get him maybe third round. And then Caden Stearns, more of a 4th, 5th round option. Another guy that would just replace Kareem Jackson very well and would be a very solid player. And once again, just holds a ton of upside. And then just our last look at the specialist room. Brandon McManus is one of the best kickers in football. Sam Martin is serviceable enough. And Jacob Bobenmoyer is a fine long snapper. No need to improve this unit. You're really not going to get much better than this unless you've got Hecker and Tucker on your team. So, yeah, A here by the Broncos. So yeah, you've seen here how the Broncos can upgrade their team next year, but that is going to be the video. Let me know what you guys thought down below, what you'd like to see next. If you did like the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't ever miss an upload. Thank you guys for all the support, and I will see all you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.